Okay, I am back. Okay. If anyone's on, okay, yeah, my mic's good. All right. Never sure about this damn microphone. All right. So I'm back on today. I'm going to talk about some astrology, and I haven't done that in a while. I think people just sort of hype the things going on in the astrology. Like they're important, but I don't know. People just talk about everything that's going on like it's this huge thing. So, but this is a big thing. So today, what what was it? So I'm on the East Coast of the United States at about 6:30 in the morning, 6:30 a.m. There was a partial solar eclipse visible in Antarctica. So not a lot of people down there, but it is very important for us. So I'm going to get in a new groove here. So let me sum this up. This eclipse is all about how we the people are relating to the our rulers, our lords and masters, and those two groups are always in tension. But what this eclipse is doing is it's going to reveal more about them. Like they've just gotten so spoiled bratish and degenerate that they just can't even cover their tracks anymore. And it's time for us to just snap out of kissing the asses of experts like we've done for generations and generations since Christianity conquered Europe and in other parts of the world. So, those so-called men of God, these church pastors were the experts that we're just supposed to bow down to and allow to run our lives. And the churchmen evolved into university professors and scientists and all kinds of shit, politicians. So the world needs experts, but we got to have self-esteem and not kiss these people's asses and just trust them and take care of everything. All right. So we're going to find out more about these classes of people in these ivory towers. And it's going to be keep rolling, and it's going to be pretty cool. And just more and more in the media, and it's like, it doesn't take an astrologer to tell you this, but it's all in the symbols. When you look at the sky, it's all in the archetypal symbols. Everything's a symbol. Your body's a symbol. This whole reality is a bunch of symbols. We're basically playing a video game. So, but it's funny how all the people who call themselves spiritual are like, no, this is really real, and they laugh at people who actually delve into the spiritual dimension. They're like, you just have to worry about your bank account in your house, and just let the experts take care of the spiritual dimension. So yeah, those fucking days are over. So yeah, so I'm preaching to the converted here. We're gonna find out more and more. The crazy shit hasn't even started. So today, 6:30 in the morning in Antarctica. So what's important about Antarctica? Since the planet is just a symbol, that South Pole represents, it's down under, it represents our deep unconscious. So it's all the thoughts, emotions, behaviors that go on that we're not even aware of, and that's 90% of what we do. So there's no running away from that. You can't go to college to no longer be sort of under the control of your unconscious. You have to work on it. You can't think that away. So yeah, so in Antarctica, these are always big. So yeah, what we have, so sidereal astrology, like I'm reading visible sky astrology. We got eclipse at 4 degrees Aquarius. So you got sun and moon conjunct at 4 degrees Aquarius. Solar eclipses are conjunctions of sun and moon. So this is a partial because the sun and moon are 10 degrees away from Rahu. So Rahu's up at 14 Aquarius. So it's still an eclipse. It's just not, extreme. So sun and moon at 4 Aquarius. And then you've got Rahu and Venus conjunct both at 14 degrees of Aquarius. And then Mercury at 22 Aquarius. So the Mercury and the Venus and the Rahu are, I mean, even they're 8 degrees away, but there's some action there. But the Mercury and the Sun and the Moon are, not close together. And I'm just looking at lunar mansions here. Let's see something. Okay. Yeah, so let's break this down. What does Aquarius deal with? Aquarius deals with we the people, the masses of people. Deals with technology, deals with large companies, with public forums, just our ability to make our voices heard, by the world. So that's where the sun and moon are conjunct. So these eclipses are portals. Rahu and Ketu, the shadows cast on the sun and moon, they're portals. So Rahu is the portal that brings things from infinity, from the higher dimensions down to Earth, whereas Ketu is the portal from Earth to infinity, to the higher dimensions. So Dragon's Head, Rahu, Dragon's Head, Ketu. Always opposite. So sun and moon, sun and moon, it's the soul and the mind. So when they're darkened like this, we basically, and this is always on the day of a full moon. So when they're darkened like this, we basically have the ability to take inventory of what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what's really deep down there. So they're in the lunar mansion of the muses. So the muses they're the goddesses who inspire artists, writers, poets, you name it. So this is all about media, all about getting messages out. So the next 6 months are going to be a big time to get big messages out. Now, some of these messages, you look at these Epstein files, you got to wonder, like, were these curated by Central Intelligence? And they've definitely had their hands on them. This isn't some like miracle transparency from the Department of Justice. These have been handled and curated. But, in this whole thing with 6 million files, 6 million's a dog whistle, okay? So they use this number, for the Holocaust, like 6 million Jews unalived by the Third Reich. So ever since then, they use this number 6 million. There are a lot of examples out there. Just look it up. So with the Epstein files, 6 million files, and it sets off an unconscious trigger, and people are like, "Oh my God, 6 million, like the Holocaust." So 3 million files, and then 3 million more, 6 million. So yeah, these have been curated, but I mean, they're putting information out there that people have said, "Oh, that's a conspiracy theory that the world is ruled by filthy fucking degenerate perverts." It always has been. But now it's just out in the open, so people can't deny it anymore. So, trust in experts and institutions, it's healthy for it to be eroded when they're completely corrupt and degenerate. But this, I think, is part of the Great Reset. So they're trying to get us to lose all trust in all institutions. So the World Economic Forum can come in and be like, you know what? We're just going to get away with we're going to do away with all the governments, all the central banks, everything. And everything's going to be run by AI that's owned by mega banks and tech companies. How does that sound? They're gonna try to pitch that idea, I think a lot of young, like, kind of like a lot of young stoners are gonna go for that. like ones who just like they don't want to work and they just want the government to save them. I think that idea is probably the most popular among them, and who are just always complaining and like regurgitating what the TV said. Some older people will go for it too, but I don't. This idea is not going to fly. They've been too degenerate and incompetent to pull that shit off. But the Klaus Schwab, you'll own nothing and be happy. They need to break down institutional trust before they can do that. And then, the Joe Biden's Build Back Better. That's what he's referring to, is this great reset where you'll own nothing and be happy. They try to sex it up by calling it the stakeholder economy. It's like you'll be a shareholder, and it's like, yeah, it's like working for like a supermarket chain that gives you a couple shares of their business. It's like you don't have the power to to do any leveraging to have your will done. It's just blowing smoke up your ass. The big shareholders are going to be the ones who are already the shareholders, the giant corporations who own the governments and the political parties and the degenerate politicians. So, yeah, they're trying to deepen what they already have, but they want us to be okay with it. They're trying to break all resistance. So, yeah, that's the deal with that. Um, and then, Rahu and Venus conjunct 14 Aquarius at Aegeon. Aegeon is the abode of King Neptune or Poseidon, the god of the ocean. So the ocean is the deep unconscious emotions, and Poseidon's basically the ruler. Neptune's the ruler. So Rahu, again, the portal that brings things from infinity into this world. Rahu is also secrets, addictions, taboos, things like that, crime. So Venus and Rahu, Venus deals with, it's the goddess of love and war, deals with sexuality, with carnality, pleasures, social activity. So yeah, information about sex crimes. Doesn't take an astrologer to tell you that, And then Mercury, also an Aegeon, I think it's an Aegeon, 22 degrees Aquarius. Mercury is communication in all forms. So yeah, just a big 6-month window until the next eclipse of all kinds of shit hitting the media, big into fucking sex crimes. People are going to be very inspired to talk about this. And then K2, which is the other side of the coin, with Rahu, the other portal. K2 is in Leo. It's in the lunar mansion of Bacchus. So Bacchus, god of revelry and partying. He was also a god of wedding feasts. He dealt with, the carnality, the sexuality side of marriage, especially. So in K2 just sort of exposes things. So Leo is the sign of rulers. So K2 is over there exposing him, being like, no more illusions. We're just going to drag it all out in the open. And another thing going on here too, 2 days ago, we had the conjunction for the second time in the last several months between Saturn and Neptune, 6 degrees sidereal Pisces. So Saturn is reality. Saturn is consistency, practicality, putting in effort, painstaking work, things that take a long time to build. Saturn is also a guardian of the working class, wants to help everybody, but you can't fuck around. You have to do things right. Neptune is sort of higher love, sort of divine love. Neptune is also dreams. So, and not all dreams are equal. Sometimes dreams can be realistic if we do the work to accomplish them, or if we're honoring our limitations and our natural gifts and talents. Or dreams can be just completely unrealistic, or we just don't have the perseverance to see them through. So Saturn basically wants to help us to manifest our dreams individually and as a world. So a lot of possibility here. We have to do the work. Saturn doesn't help you if you don't do the work. It's like that saying from the Old Testament, God helps those who help themselves. It's like pure Saturn. It's like if you don't do the work, Saturn's like, well, you're not worthy. You don't have any skin in the game, so you're not getting anything good. So yeah. And then, the other thing about today, it's the first day of the Chinese New Year because it is let me see here. Man, my brain's all scrambled from this eclipse. It's that what is it? This is the second full moon after the winter solstice. Um the Chinese New Year, it's the full moon right after what we in the West call Imbolc or Candlemas. So Imbolc is the halfway point between the solstice, the winter solstice, and the spring equinox. So it's the first day of spring. So first day of spring is in early February. It's not March 21st. It's not spring equinox. It's the in-between point between winter solstice, Yule, and spring equinox. So the first day of spring is around the 1st of February. So the Chinese New Year is the first, new moon after that Imbolc, that halfway between winter solstice and spring equinox. So the first new moon after. So this is the year of the fire horse. So the way it works, you've got in Chinese astrology, you've got 12 animals, 5 elements. 12 times 5, the multiple is 60. So you only get a year of the fire horse once every 60 years. So the fire horse is a lot of movement, a lot of action, a lot of fiery energy, like, a lot of kind of craziness, potential for violence. So the last time we had one was 1966. Vietnam was rolling and CIA was regime changing all over the world. The Soviets were doing the same thing because the Soviets and the companies and the banks in the West that CIA works for were competing for resources all over the world. So that's why that happened. So yeah, this is it's a big eclipse. You're really going to see mom and dad's world really shit the bed. The status quo is it's been flatlined since about 2020. It's not coming back. It's funny how I think about the hippies a lot, how they became like champions and like troubadours of the status quo. It's like they didn't stick with the open-mindedness. They just kind of like they got comfy in the status quo, and it's like now they're the status quo's biggest champions. So, but they call themselves open-minded and all that shit. So it must be true if an American says it, right? We're just people all around the world do this, but since we've been the big imperial bully on the block since World War II, it's like we're especially bad at it, as a collective. It's not about our actions and what we do, it's just about what we say we do. Yeah, and people have always done this. They always will do it. But when you're a giant commercial and financial empire and you're putting on a show like you're some great humanitarian, it's just ridiculous. So, I do love my country. The government's a crock of shit. The aristocrats are degenerate. The middle class is not much better. The middle class like aspires to be that and aspires to be Ivy Leaguers and all that stuff. And they're like masters of denial. So, people need to come to their senses here. So yeah, Interesting times. I think that's pretty much all I have. Don't quite have back my my video mojo yet, but yeah, I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in. And I'll see you later.